Hi, folks. You're listening to the Law Firm Blueprint. If you're listening to us on a podcast, please give us a 5-star review. Thank you so much. Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, and with me, as always, is Seth Price down there in his home office. Is it as cold as it is for you? I got out today. If you can see over my shoulder, it's still white.
It's not great. It's not great here.
Yeah, I kind of wish I was
from Puerto Rico though, the John Fisher Mastermind, and it was glorious there.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, when's my next trip to someplace other than freezing? And it's not till April in Aruba. And I'm like, oh my Lord, I don't know if I could wait that long.
You're not going to be there the first, end of March, beginning of April, right?
No, I'm the second week of April.
Yeah, well, you'll have to say hi to Olga at Delphi Water Sports and all of our other friends. We have our smoothie lady. We have our pliable guy. So hopefully,
my kids are into those pliable things. So I'll have to get
those on the boardwalk. They just renovated it. It's an institution where there's breakfast or lunch. You can't beat it.
Okay, good to know. Folks, if you're traveling, get your travel agent Seth. You should actually, Seth, that would actually be a new thing that you could do. You could become a lawyer conference influencer where you take people around the local area where they hold these conferences and say, if you're coming to, this one, make sure you hit up these places.
Actually, would find a lot of followers. I get the text and the call saying, where do I do this? And it's stuff like Aruba, just my happy place. The family loves it. And over the years, we've collected people there that have become part of our circle.
Yeah, I have a bartender in Turks and Caicos that I love to see. I see Pauline. She makes me a nice rum punch, and we have some laughs. It's funny. We were just talking before we came on the air about she grew up in the Bronx and then moved back home. She like her teenage years, but she's been there now for 20 more. And we often joke about places in the Bronx that we both sort of frequented because we're around the same age. And she's always like, "Oh, you're crazy because you're like the only guy who comes down here who wants to talk about the Bronx."
Well, look, I will set this up for you. Olga will send Speedy Gonzalez, her little speedboat, to pick you up wherever you're staying and bring you back to their hut in front of the Hyatt.
So I like the sound of that.
Yeah, they do. They have like a great sunset sail we've done almost every time we've been down there. That just is a great way to end the night there.
See, folks, this is what happens if you live in like the Northeast or the Boston, D.C. corridor. It's the middle of February. It is freezing. There's so much snow on the ground. And all we're talking about is the things that warm our hearts. And that's interpersonal relationships, right? That's one of the things that makes a difference in this business, but also getting away from winter. So if you live in one of these places where it's warm year round, God bless you. I'm a little jealous right about now. I won't be jealous in August when it's 120 degrees and you guys are stepping outside and getting hit in the face with that sort of heat. But Seth, so tell me about your week. What's been going on? I had a rough week last week, but this week I'm back at it.
Well, that's good. The mastermind was awesome. Was down there, spent time with McCready, Gary Christmas, John Fisher. It was a wonderful group, and many more. Got to spend some time with the Finch people and see their pre-lit product, which is fascinating. The idea they're the second to market in this space where, they basically take a case from intake through demand. And it's just fascinating to see. And I think that it intersects with our talk last week about private equity. I'm getting a lot of calls. Like, how do you... Literally, I'm getting calls. I want to come have dinner with you. Pick your brain. I don't know if you like that term or not, but people are trying to figure out how do they prepare for a private equity world. And what I think that groups like Finch are showing is that if you layer technology, you can bring the cost down on things beyond what we normally think they are. We talk about hiring and firing, the mistakes we make. Imagine the desire to sort of say, hey, you guys deal with all the headaches, bring the best technology. I'm still battling certain employees, trying to get them to embrace AI and beyond. So fascinating to see that. You're starting to see the discussions about what is the future of case management. Will AI programs and case management intersect, or will the AI programs gobble it up where they become the place of record for your files? So instead of integrating it, it will be the management.
Yeah, I was on LinkedIn today just sort of scrolling around, and I noticed one of the ones that I follow was talking about Baker McKenzie's laying off 700 staffers. Baker McKenzie's a huge firm, but 700 people at the staff level, paralegal staff level, and they're saying it's as a result of the technology use, the increased use of AI and that type of thing. I'm sure it's people that were bait stamping stuff and doing deposition digests and the like. But that's a lot of people to be let go. As I think it might be, an indicator of where things are going, because I'm sure they are getting pressure from their corporate clients to utilize AI better, and I'm sure that will translate to us. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm talking to my lawyers in my office, and clients are saying, "Well, did you run this police report through AI?" To the
Look,
lawyers, and they're
my,
saying, the
look,
lawyers are
look,
saying, "Hey, that's why you hired me."
those
And
words came. I had an employment lawyer, and we now needed like a handbook that accomplished things in 12 different states or some nonsense. And they were going to hire counsel. I'm like, before you hire counsel, can you at least run this through AI and let me know on some sort of private system? Does this comply with X states, to see is there anything being like, start there at least preliminarily? Yes, it is. It's a thing.
but maybe, I don't know, maybe we're the outliers here, Seth, because we've been talking about AI since November of 23. And we're now 2.5 years into it. We're using it regularly, daily. I just spent the whole morning today using it for multiple things. In fact, this week alone, I published a new book on Amazon. It's a workbook to write alongside my latest book, and I was like, I don't have time to write this, but I know people want to have a workbook to go along with it because it'll help them. And so I just said, I uploaded the book and I said, make a workbook to go along with this. And then I sent it out to a graphic designer. And in 72 hours, I had a
Surprised you even
corresponding
did
workbook.
that. It's probably an AI prompt for that piece.
Well, that's exactly what it is. So we are the outliers. We're talking about it here on the show in our community. It's astounding to me how many people in the greater legal community are simply not at all. And
I think to a certain extent, it's figuring out where it's useful and where it's interesting and where it makes money. And we talked about that a lot, right? There's stuff that's really positive. Look, I had a really tough moment at our Price Benowitz Summit a couple weeks ago when a paralegal in front of the entire the non-lawyer staff, non-manager, non-lawyer staff room, made some sort of proclamation. She doesn't trust ChatGPT or AI, and I'm never going to use it. And, I was talking to McCready, his core value is adoption of technology at his firm. And I'm sitting there very torn. The person's making money. She's billing hours. And is she going anywhere anytime soon? No. But that's clearly not a pillar you want to be building on.
oh, hell
And
no.
clients aren't going to stand for it at some point, or it's going to be non-competitive. We have one partner who does transaction work, old buddy of mine. He's basically his attitude is no more charge for paralegal times because I can get this all done with AI.
Well, paralegal time is a moneymaker for some firms.
I understand. I said, hey, wait a second, Joe. We got to talk this through. But I think that's also what the big firms are struggling with, which is, think about the entire industry. And it's a shame because the people needed those jobs. But when we went to law school, if somebody couldn't get a job, the job that was open to them was big firm doc review. You'd sit there, and frankly, I had a theory. I hope this doesn't offend anybody.
I did that one summer.
Yeah, that if you go more than 15 months doing it, you're no longer employable. It sucks your soul. Or
Absolutely.
you didn't have the gumption to get out. I don't know which comes first. But that entire industry where you're flagging stuff, that's what AI is amazing. Like, I would trust AI over the third tier law student who can't get a job and is stuck doing that, because they want to be in the legal industry.
Yeah, well, I think those, I mean, we're showing our age, right? But, you get out of law school in the 90s, there were a lot of people who gravitated to those. You miss you fail the bar exam once, you take one of those jobs, then you don't sit for the next bar exam. The next thing you know, you're 7 years doing doc review.
Right. And
you feel like you're law related. You
You know,
wearing a tie?
look, every once in a while I got lucky that you met somebody in the break room that gave you a shot to be an associate. You know, I know one person it happened to. You know, if you're a firm that was integrated, it literally reminds me a little bit of the book by Malcolm Gladwell. Was it Outliers, where he talked about why did like the immigrants on the Lower East Side were much more successful than the immigrants on the West Coast. The immigrants on the West Coast went to pick grapes, and they never saw anybody with wealth. The people on the Lower East Side were selling rags, but it was in the same area as the people who were Wall Street financiers, and there was opportunity. So if you're in a place where that doc review was in a separate building, yeah, you were done, or a separate floor that you never saw anybody. But if you were integrated into a firm, onto a team, then you got to see people, that once they fell in love with you and loved you, yeah, they might get you a chance to be a junior associate and work your way up. But
yeah, for sure. When I came out of law school, I had no job prospects. I tell my story all the time, but
you're still not particularly employable.
Oh God, no. God, no. I'd be such a horrible employee. I mean, it's funny. I sat for the Foreign Service exam. At one point, I thought, oh, I can go work.
I had the application.
I did it twice, and now that I know personality testing and I'm a little more, I've been a little self-introspective. I'm like, God, I would have been horrible.
Did you make it to the group interview?
No, I didn't even make it there.
No, you made it there.
I didn't even make it there.
Interesting. And those, each of those things, I almost feel like I need to, I go to reunion for the firm I was a baby lawyer at. I feel like I owe some people an apology because I was such a not great associate. I wanted to be the client so badly that, and what they were doing was fascinating. These guys starting businesses, doing roll-ups, all sorts of cool stuff.
So let me ask you, okay, this is something that we didn't talk about, but let's talk about it because I think it matters. As a law firm owner, right? How do you create in your law firm the environment, the service level, the attention that you yourself want as the client? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of lawyers don't focus on because they're like, well, I'm going to do exceptional work. But the client experience, I think, is important. It needs to be intentional. And have you taken from your life experience the ability to make changes in your firm, whether it was BluShark or Price Benowitz or whatever, because you lived an experience and said, yes, I want that feeling, I want that experience, I want that to translate to our clients?
Yeah, well, so I think intake is probably the easiest immediate differentiator, right? I did it myself. It was me and a cell phone. I sat there and answered the calls. It's now 30 people strong. We now are segmented by practice area where they're specialists in different areas, but instant gratification first with the empowerment to do things. That's like you and I get very impatient very quickly. If somebody is empowered to do as much as they can and escalate where needed, that's all you can ask for in life, right? Immediate gratification with the understanding that if the person can't, just like AI, we're seeing this with the voice. AI voice is great. Can answer a lot of questions, but if your question is between the cracks, it's as long as I have a zero that can get me off to the person I need to be with, great. So I think intake has been a great differentiator. Part of it comes down to hiring and hiring people that, especially on the lawyer level, that is not nothing. Look, I just spent personally much of the morning on LinkedIn conversing with people, and there was a hire that was, our avatar that would have been a great hire for something. I spoke to her. First, I heard in her voice that she didn't really want that type of law. And then she said it. And you know what? If somebody says it, you got to believe it. Like,
yeah,
she's like, I got there's openings at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm like with love, you got to go there. This is perfect for you at this stage of life. Coming to me, if you don't want to, I don't want somebody who does it. Like we talk a lot about the risk factors as the employer is, will somebody be with you? And if somebody doesn't love what they're doing, there's a pretty good chance that there's an 18-month over-under on their existence on a good day.
Hey, I mean, I had one that just lasted less than 5 months. And I mean, and I think, going forward, back in 1999, 1995, that type of thing, you might have people who were willing to just grin, bear it, and say, this is the lot that I've chosen. But I don't think current generations that are looking
Well,
for
more than,
jobs are going to
yes,
tolerate it.
I will agree with you. Current generations go a step further, which is any generation, even if it did fit, it wasn't a great user experience.
Oh, absolutely.
So, to me, that is, I mean, I always tell people, especially our lawyers, it's a self-selecting group. Once somebody's at a certain level of legal competence, it's do they have that passion, and are they in a position to be able to, if they have the legal excellence as a given, then do they want to be there? If they don't want to be there, life's too short. There's a lot of ways to make a buck in life.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this. Talking about hiring, something that we've done recently, and it was a promotion. It wasn't a direct hire, but it was a position that I thought about recently. And we were lucky enough to have somebody who was attracted to that role, had already worked in our system, and raised their hand when we put it out there. We've actually converted one of our pod leaders now to a technologist role who knows intimately how we use technology in the firm and is starting to focus on AI, developing web apps and the like things that we can do. Just spun up 2 web apps this weekend because he thought of something and said, "Hey, let me try this out." And wow, it's amazing
Yeah.
what he was able to put together.
Yeah,
Are you
you're
bringing
adding, you're
that into
adding,
your firm?
you're adding infrastructure, and it's AI evangelist is an awesome position. We've had this for a while at both organizations. It's not a straight line, but I saw it again. I'll go back to the Price Benowitz Summit. There were workers' comp attorneys who were like, "Look, we have to text people about their doctor's appointments as one-offs. It's got to become, it needs to be automated." And it like most things when you're dealing with existing softwares, it takes a little bit of finesse to be able to figure out how do you do this. We're now switching to Zoom. How's it going to work with it? All these things. But yes, I love it. I thought you were going somewhere you didn't go, which was John Fisher at a post the mastermind about promoting a a paralegal
Well, that was my next
into
topic.
an ops role. And if you
Right.
it's and
Yeah, and it actually caused some debate because, Fisher posts it, Craig Goldenfarb responds and says, "Don't do this." Then Kate Knockhazel gets up there and says, "Actually, we've seen some great success." So it's really sort of your mileage may vary. I'll let you
well,
know.
it depends.
It depends. I'm going to go with
But
your mileage may vary. That's
you know what?
my
I'm putting a thumb on the Kate Knockhazel side. I get if you're going for a true COO or a CFO, you got to go outside the organization. That's what Craig, I believe, is referring to in his world. But you got to fake it till you make it. John is like a 7-8 person operation. He's not going to afford enough of a step up in my, just generally, not speaking to his, I don't know his finances, but my point is that if you can get somebody who, or like just your technologist, you could have hired an outside tech, but if they already know your stuff, there's
right.
enough. And again, if it's not a situation where they sucked at their job and you're trying to hide them somewhere else, that's the mistake we've all made many times, right?
Living the
The
turd.
person fails at a job. This will hopefully be a headline. I would love to get the number. Is it 9 out of 10, 19 out of 10 that fail when a failed person goes somewhere else? We do it and we continue to do it, but it sucks because it's so unlikely. But here it's like, no, somebody's doing well. The harder part is giving up the great paralegal,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But if somebody has those skills, and again, I'm assuming they've interviewed for them and, that's how I mean, look, I screwed around when I started the firm with outside administrators, for lack of a better word. And it wasn't until I promoted from within, once failed and then once successfully, that we got traction and got off the ground. So, again, highest level ones, yeah, you need to make sure somebody really has the skill set. You're not promoting for the sake of it. But when it comes to the level, the sort of a lot of our listeners at the, sort of 1 to 5 lawyer firm, hiring from within can be a huge, you trust them. That position has so much. So if the rule of 3 is in place, the first 2 people aren't going to work. If you can cut down that curve because you trust the person.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I'm very blessed in that the C-suite I have in my office, my firm administrator, dropped out of college to work for me when she was 19 years old. She was like, "I don't really want to do this. I like being a paralegal." And then she left, and then she came back part-time, and then she left again because she was having children and her husband was in the Green Beret and he was deployed, and we were fully supportive of it. And then she calls me up and says, "Hey, guess what? He's retired. He got a disability. We're moving back to Connecticut so my parents can be around the kids. What have you got for me? I was like, I got the perfect job for you. And she has blossomed in this role. And everybody knows that she knows what you're doing because she's filled all of those seats over 25 years. And so it's really, I lucked out in both of my.
And that goes to the latter, which is I think that hiring from within, where they understand that they've sat in multiple seats, that can be extremely powerful.
Yeah, I'm at a point now where I'm like, Emily, you need to be focusing on higher level stuff rather than posting the job ads anymore. Hire yourself an executive assistant. And I think we just found somebody for her. So I'm really excited about how that role has grown for her over the years and how it's such an integral part. I mean, it's a 6-figure salary. It's not cheap, but she's earning every penny. And like, I think for me, I talked about it on the show last week. I had a bit of a rough week with an attorney who basically quit with zero notice, and just went radio silent. I stressed about it for about 2 hours, and my management team was like, "Yeah, we got this. You're good. We'll take care of it." And so I was able to walk
look, it
away from the
gets
stress.
easier with scale because that's 1/20th of your operation, not
Right.
1/3 that you had on certain early days.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest call that used to scare me was the bookkeeper when we lost bookkeepers in early days. We've had somebody 13 years now and actually looking to layer a CFO into the firm. But when an old bookkeeper left, that was the scariest moment of the firm.
Yeah, I'm outsourcing my bookkeeping right now to a local company. I have two, collections people that work with us to keep the money coming in and following up with payments and that type of thing. But I'm really at a point where I'm paying, 90 grand a year to this outsourced agency for my bookkeeping, and I think I could probably find somebody in house. But then, do I want the headache of bringing that person in?
It's not that. Like if it ain't broken, we tried the Indian group you used for years.
That did not work for me.
We failed much faster than you. Right. It was rough, and so piece by piece, it has come together. But I think at this point now, we're looking at how do we get to that next level. We've never really found a great fractional CFO solution. I've succeeded in a lot of things. One of the areas we've really struggled with is how do we, and so now we're like, you know what, we're going to bite the bullet. We're big enough we could bite the bullet and bring somebody real in.
Well, I think one of the problems with law CFOs is that many CFOs come from either, a B2C selling widgets, and so they don't have the variabilities that we have in a legal industry, and they just don't understand the.
You know what? I would almost take that though. What I'm looking at is somebody outside the legal sector, a la John Knockhazel, who'd come in, who's just wicked smart and is able to help us, forecast and budget and do all the things that right now are a luxury that should be a necessity.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, looking down the line, I got to figure out who are my next hires. Like, we're growing. I mean, one of the best things I did in the last couple of years is I added a full-time videographer, and we are just crushing it online with our videos that we're pumping out, and we're getting tons of feedback. I mean, we had like 19 million views of the videos that we put out last year. And it's translating into clients because they're mentioning YouTube, they're mentioning videos when they call in, which is fantastic. We're pushing them on social and that type of thing. But I don't know what my next hire should be to move the needle more. Maybe it is the CFO. I mean, that's a question that maybe we should get some people in to talk about is right. At what point do you know who your next hire is going to be?
Yeah, well, look, and a lot of COOs, CFOs are thrown around, and there are different levels. I mean, again, if we go back to the masterminds, from day one, there's an admin to an office manager to a law firm administrator to a director of operations to a COO. It's a continuum. I think that some of this, and the question I'm starting to get, which maybe land the plane and we could pick this up next time, is people are calling me and saying, "Hey, you guys talked about private equity last time. What do I need to do to get my firm in shape for that?" And that some of these hires will end up creating something that the MSO and the managed service organization, because if you think about it, that's what private equity is really good at. It's creating systems with efficiencies using technology. And it's probably what law firms are generally worst at. You sit there as the practitioner. And you're a practitioner first, and you have to then figure everything out. And you've done it as well or better than anybody in the space, but it's still not nothing. And so, when I get these questions, I think some of it is, the downside is it's going to affect your profit, your EBITDA, which is a barometer of how you would sell. At the same time, it's the right way to run it. And what's frustrating is I don't see the fractional working that well in the industry in general. I mean, it's better than nothing.
I think you need to have somebody all in.
Right. But that's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very expensive. And it's not revenue generating. I mean, you could get somebody who's doing that and say to them, hey, I want to generate $1 million a year in profit, right? Or $2 million a year in profit based on my numbers, and get me there. But then they may make moves that you would never do. Getting rid of that paralegal who's overpaid but has tons of relationships in the local legal community that get things done that they don't see, right? And so I have a paralegal that makes $90,000 a year, and the caseload that she works on is probably $500,000. Statistically, she is not a profitable employee, but she's also the one, when we have an issue at a courthouse, she can get on the phone and call who she knows on the inside, and now it's no longer an issue.
Awesome.
And you don't see that if you're just looking at dollars and cents. So that's one of the things that we need. This, at the end of the day, it's still an interpersonal business to some extent. It's not, it's not strictly numbers. And it's difficult to make those decisions, or to delegate those decisions being made by other people, because it could have a deleterious effect, without, and not intentionally, and not, not nefariously, just they don't necessarily know how things work in your small orbit. And now, if you're Morgan & Morgan and you're trying to be, across the country, yeah, you got to do it a different way. But if you're trying to be the powerhouse PI firm in your community, or the local workers' comp firm, or the local criminal defense firm, you need people with relationships, I think, more than you necessarily need the hard and fast numbers. I don't know. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. You got anything else?
I think I'm good.
I'm just thinking about that bar in Aruba that's going to pick me up and bring me for a cocktail. I like the sound of that.
She's the water sports person, but I'm sure she'd find you a cocktail as well.
Okay.
Moonbuzz on the beach. Where are you staying? At the Marriott?
We're staying at a Marriott, yeah.
Right next to the timeshares with the lazy river and all that stuff?
No, we're at the Stellaris Casino.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. That's the big hotel. So, yeah. I'll have Olga send you the boat. Second, a couple doors down from the Marriott, probably 3 doors down, walking towards the Hyatt, towards downtown, is Moonbuzz. They have a Latin Grammy singer 3 nights a week. Ooh. He starts around 7 p.m. We watch sunset, feet in the sand. Their house special is like a rotating kebab they bring out to the table. It is awesome. It is reasonable, and it is 2-for-1 drinks before 6:30.
I love the sound of that. So, folks, that's where I'm going to be mid-April. If you want to join me in Aruba, I'd gladly, if you're a member of our community here, I would gladly buy you a cocktail, especially if they're 2-for-1. So, folks, that's going to do it for us this week here on the Law Firm Blueprint. Of course, you can catch us anywhere you go on the go by subscribing to the Law Firm Blueprint podcast. I saw our numbers. They're like 40,000 downloads recently.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I logged into Apple Podcast stats and saw that we had a whole bunch. So if you are our listener, thank you so much. Be sure to give us a 5-star review. Be sure to check us out live every week, live on LinkedIn, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, and live in our Facebook group, The Law Firm Blueprint. I am Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. And we are done for this week. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.